Okay, so Damascus sector. In our last session we finished with our players looking for further employment, and they were signed on by a Claison seeming sort of good Samaritan who explained that he was searching for a group of cryogenically frozen colonists aboard a Kelty cryo ship that had been lost in the Satroga Nebula. He claimed to owe a life debt to the captain of the ship, Captain Bran, and was thus attempting to establish what had happened to it. They'd expected it to go out of communication range when it went into the Satroga Nebula. However, after a number of days had passed, it had not re-established communication. Starting to get worried and wanting to pay off his life debt, he offered a fairly exorbitant sum of money for the ship to be retrieved and for the lives of the cryogenically frozen colonists. Our heroes were given a 2,000 credit deposit, effectively, and we now join them as they travel from the Gerardra system, where they were previously, to the Satroga Nebula. And we cut straight in to your arrival at the Satroga Nebula. It's a huge swirling cloud of dust and debris cast in lurid pinks and reds that seems to stretch almost as far as the eye can see, encompassing much of this sector of space. Occasionally you see, sort of in the strange half light that seems to pervade this system, perhaps from a sun or other stellar body further within the nebula, but diffused through the clouds of dust. You occasionally see like a larger piece of spinning debris, like an asteroid or something like that, but much of the sector seems to be full of this swirling dust cloud. As you enter the dust cloud, as you were expecting, given what you've been told, your sensor and comms range is reduced to very little due to the magnetic particles and they're not dangerous but disruptive radiation in the nebula. It takes you quite some time to locate the ship. However, the Tobruk, it is very large, but as I say, you're pretty much down to sort of like visual range due to the limits on the comms, so you have to gradually explore this nebula. But after maybe a day or two, you start picking up on your now very short range sensors a large metallic object in the distance. And when I say large, we're talking, we're talking maybe 353 meters in length, about 125 meters wide, give or take. And it has a distinct silhouette of a ship with a large sort of engine base, a narrow, perhaps central corridor, and then what you would assume to be a bridge at the front of it, at the other end of this corridor. And you're picking it up a short way in the distance. However, it's difficult to tell because your scanners are reduced, but you're not picking up any like power readings or like the sorts of normal sort of readings you'd expect to pick up from like a healthy space-going vessel.
Does this look like the ship we were told we were looking for?
You can't be 100% sure at this distance, so you're not within visual range yet. However, given the rough size of it, you know that it's supposed to have like umpteen frozen colonists on it, it would certainly be big enough to fit the profile that you've been given.
Okay.
Is there anything you guys would like to do? You've got to, because you're having to like move fairly cautiously and slowly through the nebula, because obviously you're having to be on the lookout for larger bits of spinning debris, and also you're pretty much down to like your sort of like your thrusters and your normal engines, because again, due to the magnetics and the radiation, it's not possible to use your faster than light drive in the nebula. So you're having to you're almost like on manoeuvring thrusters, effectively moving quite slowly, just to be on the safe side. It's not to say you couldn't move faster, but obviously it would be more potentially dangerous. But as you've got a fair bit of time, as you're approaching this sort of large scanner silhouette that Tylo has picked up on the now short range scanners, is there anything you guys want to do whilst you're approaching?
I guess we just want to be keeping an eye out to make sure that there's nothing else. And trying to work out why it has no power.
Okay, if someone wants to like run the scanners to try and establish this, you can make me a D6 roll.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Go for it.
3.
Okay, you do notice something strange as you're approaching. You've rightly gathered that the sort of engine is at the rear of the ship, and as you run as you get a bit closer, you're able to get more detailed scans. You're actually picking up that whatever sort of engine or drive that they've got in their ship appears to be running at full power. So you're picking up a lot of energy signatures from within the drive, but you're not picking up any like power within the rest of the ship, apart from like the odd sort of stray wisp here and there, and the ship itself doesn't appear to be moving, which seems quite odd given like its drive's running at full power.
Okay.
It's like you'd kicked your faster than light drive up to full, but your ship was just sat there.
Okay. Something looks funny here, guys.
Not one of them gravity octopus things, is it?
You're not picking up any signs of one of the space sirens in the area. That's not to say there isn't, but...
Is there anything that Way can tell us?
Well... I think probably not. I don't know what we would look for, is the thing. On an entirely just, a shot in the dark, Tan will feel out into the void of space.
Okay, roll me a D6.
It's a 2.
You don't sense anything using the way. All you sense is the cold vastness of space.
I couldn't say.
Okay. Can we focus the sensors on the space in front of the ship to see if the space is particularly dense there, or if there's something there that we can't see?
Yeah, you sort of narrow the focus of the sensors as much as you can, and you sort of run it in the area immediately around the silhouette of this vessel. You're not picking up any other vessels. There's a few like chunks of debris, like asteroids and whatnot floating around. Nothing particularly unexpected.
Okay.
Gravity wells. We're in a nebula, so it's stars being built, etc.
You're not picking up any unusual gravity signs in the area of the ship.
That's good then. Rules out black holes.
However,
Okay, so
as you get nearer to the ship, there is suddenly what I can only really describe as like not a gravity wave, but like a ripple. And it's this sort of like ripple that barely registers on your sensors, seems to radiate out from the ship. And when it passes through your ship, seemingly doing it no harm, you literally like see like the air sort of like distorted and rippling as it like passes through you all. feels a little bit odd, as though there'd been like an air pressure change, but seems to do you no harm, and then continues out the back of your ship as this wave's sort of spreading out in all directions.
And is it coming from the ship?
It appears to be coming from the
Ship,
rear of the ship.
Oh, the rear of the ship, okay.
How about something slowing time down?
How do you intend to determine that?
I think of it right now.
Is it worth jumping into the small fighter and doing a lap of the big ship?
If you can get some readings off it, but you're gonna have to be careful.
Yeah, but at least if the small ship gets stuck, the rest of, like, if I fly it, the rest of you guys would be okay and could, you know, come and save me and stuff. Or not, as you chose.
He says with like a little bead of sweat, like.
Well, shouldn't I go? I'm barely here as it is.
Sure, you're still here. We could send a Securo droid.
Good.
I'm sure you'll be just fine doing what you did last time. A brilliant job. I'll knock on my head.
Ding, ding, ding.
If you want, I'll hop in the flyer.
Okay, so Tan, you hop in the small fighter craft and you head out of your main vessel and you head towards this large silhouette in the distance, at which point I'll move you all onto the map. So hopefully when that loads you'll be able to see it. It might take a little bit of time because it's a fairly substantial picture.
Okay.
Okay, and as you're flying around it, Tan, what in particular are you looking for?
I suppose I would be cycling through whatever scanning equipment I have and just aiming them at the big portions. So we would be looking at, I suppose, the front bit,
Okay.
and then the middle / back bit, and just cycling through to see what gives readings.
Okay, so on the front section, as you're doing like a sort of like a circuit around the vessel, effectively, and sort of like over and under it. So on the front part of the vessel, you're picking up that it is a 2-tiered sort of deck system. There's like a deck and then there's like a bit below it. And if you look at the top of the map, you'll see there's like a side view of the ship. You're picking up what you'd expect, but like your standard bridge equipment. There's a number of sort of chambers on here. You're not picking up really any sort of power signs. You are picking up that the sort of lower command deck effectively appears to have quite a substantial computer system in it, although it appears to be running at like very low power. As you continue, you follow this sort of long sort of central corridor down towards the middle section of the vessel. Due to you're not picking up many power signals, but as you're sort of looking around there, you think this is probably like where like the thrusters, the normal engine, but like the cargo bay, stuff like that are stored. You can see there's like a couple of like cargo loading like airlocks on the side that you would expect to be used for offloading and unloading cargo. Then as you get to the back end of it, which is obviously here, you're picking up again a number of low level sort of power signatures here. You're also picking up several, well, more than several dozen, a lot of long cylindrical devices which seem very similar to the cryogenic suspension chambers that you saw on the Dominion base that you raided by now a week ago.
Yeah, and died in.
Yeah, and died in. Yeah, you've been an inmate of one of them. You're also picking up what appears to be some sort of high-powered drive. You don't recognise its configuration. It appears to be spherical in form, and it appears to be running at like full power, but the ship isn't going anywhere. And you think that's probably the source of that strange wave or distortion that sort of flashed out earlier.
Right. Does it seem to have weapons anywhere that we can tell anyway?
It seems to have, like, on the front, if you like look here, you can see there's like some sort of standard like laser cannons on the front of it, but they're just sort of like your standard sort of, you know, anti-pirate sort of weapon. It's not like tooled up like a warship, but it's got some weapons for self-defense.
Right. So I'll fly back and transfer over the readings.
At this point, can you roll me a d6?
4.
Okay, no problems. Again, there is another sort of like distortion wave that rolls out from the ship. Again, it passes through all of you, doesn't appear to cause any harm. And you return to the main ship with your information.
Yep. So I'll transmit it over, and with probably like annotations of like, this is clearly where the colonists are. Maybe the system is still running in the ship. Maybe it's in hibernation. Could wake up when we board. Who knows? And then like a big question mark on the drive that we don't recognize, and like flagging it for Tylo and Balan to look at.
And can we pick up anything more on the big ship scanners, John, or is it just the same?
It's pretty much the same. Tan's been able to give you some additional details because obviously he's flown in closer, whereas in actual terms you guys are like still some distance away.
Okay. So guys, do we think we want to board and have a look around, see what's going on, examine this drive? It feels too big to tow.
And
What are these waves, though?
We think they're coming from this drive in the back of the ship.
The problem is, if we fly any closer, are we going to get stuck in whatever it's stuck in? Or is it just fully powered, ready to go? It's just not got a command to go anywhere.
don't know. Well, the wave didn't seem to do much as I was flying back.
So if we board and it turns itself on, is it then going to transport us wherever it was set to go?
Well, that's a good question that I don't know that we could get an answer to before we get on board.
I'd advise against turning on the ship systems till we know what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the first question is, are we going to try and get this back or not?
Well, we can see. We can cut off navigation, if we can cut off navigation, to stop it going anywhere. Once active, we can then hopefully find out if it is targeted to anywhere and stop it going there, plug in the then reconnect everything and fly it back to where it's meant to be. But what was the reward on this? What was the...
It's 100,000, 10,000, 100,000?
It was a substantial amount
Yeah.
per saved colonist.
Yeah, it was 10,000 credits for recovery of the ship, plus 100 credits per colonist, of which you've been told there are 500.
But we've got no life symbols.
Not that you're picking up, but they're in cryogenic suspension, so it's quite possible you wouldn't pick it up given the amount of interference. And
I'm just thinking the last person we spotted in cryogenics was that was easy to spot.
Well, I do have a jetpack, and we do have the one-man fighter.
Let's go and see if anyone's alive or in suspension. Make sure the navigation doesn't come on, and look at the. If we can't find anybody, we'll have to look at the ship records if we can get access to them, and possibly figure out how to disable this drive before it goes nuclear.
So the landing space is in the middle. It's quite the distance to the command section if the ship is automated. But I don't think we necessarily want to go cutting through the hull to get to the command first.
We also believe it's full of water, right? Because they're aquatic.
Well, now you mention that, you weren't picking up any signs of it being full of water on your scan, Stan.
Okay, I will note this and speculate maybe there's a reservoir for the colonists and it cycles in the back and not in the... Maybe they have, as much as other people have oxygen and methane, maybe they have like a back of... and then circulate it inside the suit.
My other concern with the drive is it going to go critical?
I don't think we can tell right now.
Yeah, so we're going to have to look anyway.
Yeah. Well,
so if you two want to go ahead, and then I'll catch you up in this wonderful, slow but powerful beast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good to make the first landfall and check out what's going on.
Yeah. It's a one-man fighter, so there's only space for one, is it, John?
Well, you know for a fact that two can be crammed in because the Clayson who was accompanying Tan crammed himself in there previously.
Okay.
When he was like, "Oh, I'm not letting you fly this on your own because I might miss my chance to pay my life debt."
Okay.
It's a bit cramped, but it's possible.
Okay. And is he keen to come along this time too?
Well, the Clayson, you mean?
Yeah, he is keen to come along, but even he will recognise that if you two are getting in the fight, he's not cramming a third person in.
Okay.
Unless he clings onto the wing.
Just holds his breath. Well, you know, Clayson can't survive in space for a period of time. He's going to hold on to the side of him. Still good.
Okay, so let's do that.
Okay, so Balan and Tan are heading over in the fighter. So where do you want to land on this vessel?
Here.
Okay, no problems. So you head over to it. You can see the external sort of cargo doors, as I described it. This large sort of imposing dark metal airlock door. You're not seeing any signs of sort of activity on it. It doesn't like automatically open when your ship gets near it.
Is there any, if you do a swipe, is there any kind of network activity of like, send your detail here to open the door?
Not as far as you can see. You'd expect that normally if you were going to dock off, so there'd be someone controlling the ship to just like, open the airlocks or whatever.
Yeah, get in.
Or
Is there a socket I can connect my mini computer to?
There would be your normal maintenance sockets and stuff like that. Obviously, they're not really accessible from inside your fighter because they'd be on the exterior of the ship.
Okay.
Do you want to land on the wall here? And
well, I do have a spacesuit and a jetpack. So really,
Yeah.
I can just
And put a cable on the
yeah.
thing.
Uh,
Fly out.
Okay. So I'll do that then, John. I'll drop out with my spacesuit on. Jetpack across.
Yep.
Pull out my mini computer.
Yep, not a problem.
Uh,
Yep, you plug it in, roll me a d6.
okay. 6.
Okay. As you plug it in, you get a sort of, like standard sort of like loading screen message, effectively, like a sort of corporate loading screen. A lot of it you don't understand. You assume it's in like the Celtic language. However, you don't notice that the word Apollo is mentioned a number of times in it.
Okay.
And then there's like a command prompt, which would obviously be like where you put in like your access code or whatever to.
Okay. Is Apollo a word I would recognize, or in some context that I, as a player, have forgotten?
Obviously, you know it in the human context of being like an ancient, like Greek god, but beyond that, you can't think of it meaning anything specific in this context.
And can I put in Apollo as the passcode and see what happens?
Yeah, it's just like.
Okay. Now, is there some way I can use my mini computer to translate or to send a picture of the text to our Diplo droid and get it to translate it for me?
Yep, you can. You send your you send like a screenshot effectively over. You're getting in touch with the Diplo droid on the comms, and it's like, "What you want, sucker?"
I would like you to translate this text for me, please, Mr. Droid, Mr. D.
You get like a sort of like an image of like the Diplo droid pops up. He's like wearing like gold chains around his neck and like rings, and he's like, "Send me that through, sucker."
So I'll send it through to him.
You send it through, and in the same sort of like Mr. T-esque voice that I won't keep doing, mainly because it will ruin my throat. He translates it and basically says that Apollo is the name of the ship's computer.
Okay.
And it's a standard sort of diagnostic screen. Obviously, you've plugged into like a diagnostic port when they're doing maintenance on the ship, when they were like checking the airlocks at work, etc. This is how the mechanics would access it. He says that it's basically asking for sort of like a diagnostic code for you to put in to verify that you are who you say you are.
Okay.
He also, the Diplo droid also tells you that the for like a colonist ship, even like a cryo ship, like this seems like quite a sophisticated computer.
Okay. So I have a toolkit. What does the toolkit do? Is there any way I can hack the brute force, the code?
With your previous roll of 6, yes, you certainly can. So you basically just get your like mini computer to like rattle through like umpteen iterations of the codes, like just like effectively like trying all the different number combinations like at supernatural speeds. It whizzes through loads. It probably takes you about 5 minutes, and then eventually you're rewarded when like a green light comes up, and you effectively now have access to the airlock. You can open it.
Okay. So I will open it and see what happens.
Okay, yeah, no problem. You open the airlock. It opens into a fairly large cargo bay. Looks pretty empty. There's a few like crates. There's there's like a sort of cargo sort of like loading lift that you would know would normally sort of like descend out of the bottom of the ship for if they had like big items of cargo they wanted to like lift up, they couldn't bring in through the airlock. All looks fairly neatly kept. You don't see any like mad amounts of cargo in here at the moment, but it otherwise looks unremarkable. But can you roll me a d6, please?
5.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Again, another one of these waves like ripples out, doesn't appear to do any harm or affect anyone.
Okay, and now that I am in front of it, it's definitely coming from the back of the ship, is it?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, and now that I am in the ship, am I seeing any signs that the internal of the ship has been flooded, or any sense? Do I have any sense that it's ever been aquatic in nature?
Not that you can see. However, as you're looking around the cargo bay, you do spot what appears to be like a bloody handprint, like smeared down one of the cargo bay walls.
Okay. Is it like a human handprint, or do I have any sense that it's Kelty or?
You notice that it has like sort of like distinct like webbing on like part of it, so you would assume it's perhaps a Kelty handprint because you know they're aquatic, so like having webbed fingers would make sense.
Okay. So I'll call out on the comms for Tan to fly the ship in, and once he does, I'll close the door and then.
Yeah, no problem. You pilot the fighter craft in, you deploy the landing legs, touch it down in the cargo bay, you send the signal on your mini computer. Balan, the airlock doors like slam shut.
Okay. So Dan gets out, I'll point to the bloody handprint and say something seems off here.
Do we know what kind of hands the Kelty have?
You don't have extensive like knowledge of the biology. You've not really met any of them.
Yeah.
But as I've said, with Balan sort of going, I can see like there's webbing on the bloody handprints. It would make sense to assume they've got webbed fingers because they're aquatic.
Yeah.
So you've been told.
Now that we're on the ship, can I try and hook into the ship's computer and do a scan for life signs?
You can indeed. Roll me a d6.
So while this is happening, because you're plugged in and you're surfing the, information superhighway, John, that looks awfully like a first aid station.
It is indeed.
I will be checking that up.
Okay, yeah, you open the first aid. It's effectively like a first aid like cabinet, where they keep bandages and stims and stuff like that. You open it up, and it's largely empty. However, inside you find a hypo spray that appears to be empty. However, it's like covered in blood, and there's like a piece of a gelatinous material that might be like a bit of brain like stuck on the end of it.
Okay, let's go back to Balan because I will be thinking about this for a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a 1, John.
Okay. So you were trying to hook into the ship's computer.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
At this point, since you've rolled a 1, I'm going to ask me, can you please describe let's not beat around the bush, let's call it a traumatic event from Balan's life. Anything you like. Obviously, I'm happy for you to freestyle this. You know your character.
So I kind of feel like there should be pod racing involved. So I'm guessing there was a pod racing crash that resulted in the death of a close friend.
Of course, you know what my next question is going to be, don't you?
I do.
Or would you like me to randomly generate a name?
I'd love you to wrong the generator name because I'm
No worries.
struggling.
I also have a similar problem. That's why I always got the random name generator on hand. Male or female friend?
Male.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a quality name. Right, your friend was called Rick's Blaze.
That sounds like a pod raiser name.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as I saw that, I'm
Of
like,
course
I'm having that. Okay, so yeah, as you're stood there and you're trying to like sort of hack into the computer system, there's suddenly, again, there's another of these waves washes out and everyone's unharmed by it as previously. However, as it passes over you, there is this blinding white flash and suddenly you're no longer on the ship. You're back on the sort of dusty desert world where this pod racing crash occurred. As actually happened at the time, you're stood looking down, horrified at the wreckage of this pod racer. You can see the twisted body of your friend Rick's Blaze sort of mangled up in the wreckage. And it feels absolutely real. You can feel the wind blowing on your face. You can smell the acrid fumes from the smoke that's billowing from the crashed pod racers. You can hear the of like the other pod racers like zooming past.
Okay.
What do you do?
Uh,
And how long ago was this? Just roughly.
I don't know, 20 years maybe.
Okay. So if you sort of like look down at yourself, you look as though you're 20 years younger. You look as you
Okay.
remember being at the time.
Okay, so I think it's real then, do I?
Well, you've not forgotten that you went onto the ship and suddenly you were here.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, okay.
Like I say, you can feel the wind. You can feel the dusty ground beneath your feet. You can smell so it feels real.
Okay. So I guess at the time, I would have tried to pull what was left of the body out before the fuel erupted. And I guess now that I'm here looking at the same scene again, that I would probably try and do the same thing.
Okay, so before we go into that, I'm going to ask you, what is it that makes this scene so, aside from like seeing the death of your friend, what is it that perhaps Balan feels guilty about or like makes him feel like particularly traumatized about this experience? Because obviously if it's just your friend crashing, it'd be unfortunate, but it wouldn't be traumatizing.
Yeah, so I guess that he didn't want to race that day.
Well, Balan didn't, or your friend didn't.
Or Rick's Blaze didn't. And Balan kind of goaded him into it as young men are wont to do. So yeah, I guess he shouldn't have been racing that day, and it's kind of Balan's fault that he was, and therefore Balan kind of feels like, really, if I had just left him alone, he'd still be alive.
Okay, so as you run up to help him out of the wreckage, as you remember doing when this actually happened 20 years ago, as you're sort of trying to pull him out, you remember when this actually happened. By the time you got to like the wreckage, he was already dead, and all you could do was like pull his body out and drag it away before the ruptured engine on the pod racer like exploded, which you did, but it was already too late. He was already gone. He was mangled up in the crash. However, in this sort of vision, I suppose we'll call it, of these events, you get to the point where, when it actually happened, you sort of like reached out and you were like, oh, he's dead, and you like checked his pulse and then dragged him out. However, at this point, as you get to him, he's actually still alive, and he sort of like cranes his head round toward you, and his neck is twisted at an impossible angle. He looks at you, and his eyes sort of like rolling backwards in his head to reveal the whites, and in a very sort of hoarse, sort of deep rumbling voice that doesn't sound like that of Rick's Blaze, he says, "Why did you make me do it, Balan? I told you the compensators weren't ready. You did this. You did it." And as he reaches out for you, the engine of the pod racer explodes, engulfing him in fire, burning his flesh from his bones in front of you. And as you snap back to reality on board this strange vessel, the last image that's sort of burned in your retina is this like skeletal burning form of Rick's Blaze sort of like reaching out this bony hand towards you. And then there's a flash and you're back on the ship. Tan's still like poking around in like the medical supplies cabinet. Doesn't seem to be aware that anything's happened to you.
Okay. So I guess I just kind of shake it off the way you kind of would if you have a memory that you don't necessarily want to relive. And I'll go back to trying to hack the computer.
Okay. Eventually you discover that the ship's computer appears to be in like a hibernation mode. So you think you probably could interface with it, but at the moment it's not sort of powered up. So if you powered up the system, you would undoubtedly be able to interface with it.
Okay. But also, I think if I powered up the system, it would go back to the previous.
But potentially, it depends on what it's. If it was like pre-programmed with something before it shut down for whatever reason.
Okay. And then, do we have short-term handheld scanners?
Yeah.
And can we, I guess, sense any kind of life forms within a, I don't know, 25-foot radius or whatever, however far they go?
Okay, you sort of tap on your personal scanners to like trying to extend the range. However, there is a burst of static and you don't receive any clear readings from your scanner.
Okay. So I'll go over to Tan at the first aid cabinet and say, I'm not getting that on the sensors. Something seems off. Suggest we check the bodies at the cryo stations at the back and get a sense.
And as you say that, the sound of static still hissing from your scanner, you hear the voice, this low gravelly voice from your vision emanating from the scanner, and you hear this as well, Tan. And the voice says, "The compensators weren't ready. You did this, Milan. You did this." And then it sort of fades away and is lost in the static, as though the voice sort of rose out of a sea of static and then disappeared below the waters.
So I look at Tan to see if he also heard that.
I'll be looking at you with a look that says "Quoi?"
I had a vision about the day Rick's died, and very, almost identical to the actual event, except he spoke to me before he passed.
How does that? What?
Yeah, I was just plugging into the computer and there was the wave, and then I just had this memory.
So is Balan looking okay? So if I because you're probably wearing your spacesuit with your shenanigans outside, so looking in through his visor and stuff, like his pupils okay? Is it looking there?
Obviously, it's up to you, Balan, how you sort of look emotionally. But in terms of like physically, does he medically look okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He probably looks a bit surprised and maybe a bit unnerved, but
who doesn't?
he doesn't look like he's been like poisoned or like there's any sort of weird like medical stuff going on.
Yeah. Right. So there's a number of things here that are highly unusual. We'll deal with the crash. Look at this. So, John, just to check, the medical station area, is the blood and the tissue matter on the hypo spray, are those the only signs of potential harm here? Are there bloody handprints on the doors and the
No, it's only the
surfaces.
bloody hyper spray.
Why would this? I really want to ask you about the crash stuff now, but consider for a moment this, Palan. I think that's probably some fleshy tissue, and the hypo spray is entirely covered in blood. Yet the cabin is good. There's no splatter. There's no handprints. No leakage. No spray. I think we might be dealing with something that we're entirely unprepared for, and I don't know what to do about it. Well, let's go check the bodies.
Yeah,
and
I think it's only a few feet from here to there, and if that looks bad, we can still escape.
So you're planning on heading to where I'm assuming, by the way, that you're sort of keeping Tyler up to date on all this via the comms.
Yeah,
Yes,
if there's a chance, I would suggest we have like a common channel thing going
that's
at
absolutely
all
fine.
times.
Occasionally there's a bit of static or you have to repeat something, but largely it seems okay. So obviously you can keep track of what's going on, Tyler. So you guys, are you heading for where the drive is, where like the cryotubes are? Or?
Yeah, I think. Should we have a look in the other cargo bay first, since it's here?
Well, yeah, because it's across the corridor, so we can just tap open the door.
Yeah.
And see what's inside.
Okay.
So we'll tap open cargo bay 2 first.
Yep. Again, because there's not any power going, like the automated like press this and the door opens doesn't seem to work. But as with most of these like interior doors, they have like a manual handle as well that you can work in case like the power goes down. So you have to like sort of turn this handle to like manually crank it open. It takes a little while and it's a little bit noisy, but it's fine. It's not like you need a roll to do it. It's just like standing there going like that for a few moments. Who's first out the door?
I am.
Okay. So you head out of the door, and as you do, you see a pair of legs sort of hanging down. Their feet are about level with your face.
Okay. Are they Kelty feet?
They would appear to be. They're like a light sort of shimmery blue scaled feet with webbing on them. They're sort of hanging like the legs up, the feet sort of down like that.
Okay. And if I look up, is there a whole body?
Yep. You look up and you see the body of, you presume, a Kelty wearing some sort of uniform. It appears to have a large length of cable around its neck that has been like slung over one of the support beams and sort of tied off to something else.
Okay.
And the body is like hanging there with the cable around its neck. So.
And looking at the body, can I see if it's in Richter Mortis and we can be sure it's dead, or do we think that it recently hung?
It appears to have been hanging there for some time.
Okay. So I guess I'll cut it down and examine, see if I can work out what happened to it.
Okay, so you cut the body down, you lower it down to the floor, that's absolutely fine. On the body you can see there's a number of sort of like shallow and deep like cuts and wounds on its body. However, none of them are sort of life-threatening. They'd be painful, but they wouldn't be like lethal.
Okay.
You can see that the death does appear to have been asphyxiation from hanging.
And do I have any sense whether they were made by a weapon or...
They appear to have been made by some sort of like bladed weapon or cutting instrument.
Okay.
Obviously you're not a doctor, so you don't know the specifics, but it's not like a laser blast, it's like something physically like cut this person.
Okay. And do I know enough about the uniform to know if it's a captain or a part of the crew, or...
It doesn't have anything that you'd recognise as like rank insignia on it. It's more just like a sort of jumpsuit, and you're in the sort of cargo base. You think maybe this is one of like the sort of standard like maintenance workers, perhaps.
Okay. Okay. And so I'll step over him and try and open the door to cargo bay 2.
Yep, not a problem. You open the door to cargo bay 2. Again, you have to like wind the sort of like the crank to open it. And in there, you see this looks like it's the site of an absolute massacre. There are at least a dozen Kelty bodies lying in here. Some of them have like bits of like metal sticking out of them. You have a quick look around. It basically looks as though they set about each other with a series of improvised weapons.
Okay. Okay.
Well, let's just blow the ship up, guys.
You can obviously also see there's like an engineering sort of like station in here.
Okay.
And again, there's another one of like the cargo lifts that would be used in space stations to load heavy cargo on board.
So we stick to the plan and have a look at the cryo station.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there these bodies that we've seen? They've got some kind of uniforms, you said?
Yeah, just sort of like jumpsuits.
Yeah. So I will have made a note of if there's any insignia, but if not, then okay, fine. But the color and the way that the uniform looks, because I'm trying to discern if this is the sort of awake crew, and are the colonists separate by what they wear.
Yeah, you don't see any obvious insignias, but they are like just these like grey jumpsuits, like one-piece jumpsuits.
Yeah, so I'll make a note of that.
Okay. And as they're doing that, back on your ship, Tylo, you hear the following. And as you glance down at your instrumentation, you can see that there is a power spike in the faster-than-light drive in your own ship. And it's sort of dangerously moving into like overload territory.
Right, then I will start investigating the cause of this before it decides to go to the point of no return.
Okay, roll me a d6.
Five.
Okay, so you have a look around, and when you first sort of like examining it, you're running your diagnostics, etc. It looks as though some part of like the sort of energy matrix on your faster than light drive has become somehow like destabilized or depolarized, and that's what's causing the sort of dangerous energy buildup. However, as you investigate more fully, you're an engineer, you know this sort of stuff, you're a pilot, you're used to dealing with this sort of stuff. You check like all the normal things that could have possibly caused that, that you'd expect to lead to like a reactor or what if this part had failed or the magnetic links had like depolarized, and you find that like none of those are the case. You can't actually find a cause for this like this overload that seems to be building up.
I'll go and look at the engine itself.
Okay, you head to the engine, you look at the engine, like visually inspect it rather than relying on the readings. The engine looks fine. You can't actually, now you're physically looking at it, see any signs of like an overload or a power build-up. Although when you check on your instrumentation, it's still telling you like this drive's about to blow, the overload's getting critical, and you can still hear like the alarm like.
I'm going to shut the alarm off.
Yep, kill the alarm.
I'm going to get the Diplo droid.
What's good, sucker?
I'm going to stand it in front of the engine.
Okay.
And say, look, fool. Anything out of the ordinary happens to this engine, you let me know straight away.
So, you ain't getting me to stand in front of no exploding engine, sucker.
I'm going to turn you off if you don't.
He just sort of nods. And he's like, what does he want me to do anyway?
Just tell me if anything out of the ordinary happens to the engine.
Okay. And he just sort of stands out like staring at the engine.
Right, I'll go back to the cockpit.
Yeah, all the sort of like warning lights are still like flashing.
And I'm going to do a reset of the computer.
Yep. Obviously that'll take like a few minutes to like reboot it all up and everything. So there'll be a few minutes where like Tylo like drops out of contact with you guys. Now obviously you will see on your sort of your heads-up display sort of readout where it's effectively like, you know, when you have like a Zoom conversation and you've got like your participants list, you will see that like Tylo just like disappears off that, and it just goes blank for a few minutes. Obviously, it's up to Balan and Tan whether you comment on that or do anything about that.
I think Tan would have said in the glorious tradition of horror movies, probably a bit of static.
And as you say that, outside of the Tobruk, there is, heard by us because obviously when you're the audience you can hear sounds in space, but not heard by you guys, there is a loud explosion. And as you guys sort of like look back through like the airlock door, you see where your ship was, there is suddenly like an exploding ball of fire and gas that's sort of like, and when it clears you just see like debris like spinning away. What do you do?
That's not good. So I guess I'll be trying to reach Tylo on the radio.
Okay, you effectively you do the equivalent of like, you know, like sending out like a ping on the comm system to try and like, but you get like no bounce back. You're not picking up anything. No one's receiving.
Okay.
It's almost as though she's not there.
Mm. Okay, so we've seen the ship explode, have we?
Yep, you've just seen your ship explode.
Oh, okay.
And metal debris spinning away into the darkness of space shortly after Tylo dropped off the comms group, and now you've been unable to raise her. You've received no response at all.
Suggest we go to the control and see what we can see.
The controls are all the way at the front. Do we want to check out the cryo drives first? Cryopods?
Highly keen to get eyes on the outside, but
Okay.
if you want, we can go take a look. I'm not sure we can do much there, but we can take a look if it's a sign of.
Yeah, but I guess if it has gone and if we're not seeing things, then we'll have to salvage this ship to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, let's go look at the cryo because we don't want to get caught in the back.
No.
Okay, so you guys start making your way. It's a bit of a wall, but you start making your way through to like the drive room. Meanwhile, back on the O'Neill, Tylo, you've managed to like reboot up all the systems, etc. Everything comes back online, and as it does come back online, your systems are now showing like no warning signs, no signs of like an overload, no nothing. Everything seems to be fine.
I'll get back on the comms then.
Okay, so as you guys are like, oh, we need to find out what's going on with the ship. We're going to check out the cryo. Suddenly it's like, boom! Tylo Dolph has entered the chat. And like Tylo's like little like avatar thing like pops up.
I'll say, how does it feel to be dead, Tylo?
Liberating. Why?
We've seen the ship explode from here.
Okay, we had an engine warning, but no actual issue.
Yeah, this was flaming debris type of issue. And I'm not sure who I'm talking to right now. But that being said, if this is Tylo, there's something really wrong on the ship, and we can't tell what it is, but you can probably start piecing together some idea is because if
So let's go back to plan A then and blow up the ship.
And as you say that, Tylo, coming from sort of further on in the O'Neill, you hear the sound of like clanging and like loud shouting, and you guys, it's so loud you guys can like hear a bit of it over on the comms.
I'm going to turn on the Securo droid.
Okay. Is that the Securo droid that's not been repaired yet?
It's not been repaired, but
Okay.
it's a bit dodgy on the old electrics.
Yeah. You can probably like jury rig. Roll me a d6, and I'll say you could probably like have it up and running for that many rounds. Because you just quickly like sort of like jury rig it to run for a bit.
Or
Yeah, 4 turns, let's say. That's fine. You bring up the security droid. It's a bit sort of jerky and uncoordinated because you've like effectively just like gaffer taped it together and like go security droid. And you've had to do some like hasty like on the fly reprogramming because you've not had time.
One directive at the minute is defend me.
Yeah, that's fine. It takes up position next to you and it like brings up like the arm with like the gun on it. It's a bit like.
I'll do. And then I'm going to go and slowly. I'll be back in a minute, guys. I've got to go find out what's going on the ship.
Okay, so you head into the ship. The sound of like shouting and like metallic clanging gets louder, and as you sort of head into like the mess hall, you find Grook, the Claison who owns the life debt to Tan, is just like beating absolute fuck out of the Diplo droid. Just like full bore, like WWE, like smashing it about the room and like smashing it into the table. And the shouting you can hear is coming from Groot, and he's like, "You won't take me back!" And he like smashes it, like, elbow drops it into the table.
Groot, man. What the fuck?
Okay, make me a charisma roll.
18, fail.
Okay, so he just pays no attention to you. He's like fully occupied with like beating this like Diplo droid, and he's just like attacking it with his bare fists and like I said, like, smashing it into walls. And he's like, "You're not gonna make me go back to that rock." Like bits of like metal and like cogs are like dropping out of the Diplo droid as the Diplo droid's like, "What you talking about, sucker? I ain't doing anything." Like, obviously a Diplo droid, it's not programmed to fight in combat, even in self-defense. So it's basically just like, in its sort of like Mr. T-esque voice, like trying to say, "What's going on? Can we calm down?" And this like Clayson's not having any of it. He's just like, doesn't even seem to be like hearing it talking. He's just like thrashing it. You're pretty sure like if you don't stop him soon, like this Diplo droid's going to be an ex-Diplo droid.
I'm going to send the Securo droid in.
Okay. What sort of orders are you giving it?
I'm giving it an order to apprehend, not kill, Groot.
Okay. Roll me a d20.
18.
Okay, so what? Obviously, like relying on its fairly sort of like jury-rigged brain, what the security droid does is it rumbles forward and it like shoots Grook in the kneecap with like its laser rifle, because it's like, oh, that'll disable him, but probably won't kill him. He might lose a leg, but you know, he'll still be alive.
That's not lethal.
Shoots him in the kneecap, which obviously like sends him flying off the Diplo droid. He lands on the other side of the chamber, and then he sort of like pushes himself up into a seating position. And he like looks around, like looking like really confused, and he's like, "What? Where?" And he just like doesn't really seem to know where he is, but he like doesn't seem to have like the mad urge to like kill anything anymore. He's just like looking really confused.
Right, Groot, confine yourself to quarters.
He sort of like nods and he heads over to the quarters that he's been using, and you hear like the like doot of the lock.
Cool.
You see, luckily, you seem to have like stopped him before he did like any severe internal damage to the Diplo droid. There's a bit of sort of like a few like bits of metal chipped off its casing and stuff like that, but nothing that you can't like buff out given enough time, you know.
Right, I'm going to go back to comms. Grook's just attacked the Diplo droid.
Was he
He's
seeing
screaming about
things?
something back to a rock or something. We had to kneecap him to get him to stop.
Okay. Well, we've been seeing some things too here, which are necessarily not there. So if he's delirious, could be that. Not sure what to do about it, though.
I'm all for plan A.
And as you're saying this, and obviously you're still walking and talking on the comms, Balan finishes like opening the door. You head inside to the drive chamber. It appears to be a round, circular, raised platform, and in the centre of it is what looks to be a spinning sphere of dark metal, and then sort of fixed on the upper walls at like angles are like what look to be like hundreds of these like cryo tubes in numerous rows. You can see like Kelty inside of them, probably in cryogenic suspension. You're not sure, you're not doctors. However, the nearest few to you, which are the ones you can see clearly, the people inside the cryotubes have these looks of absolute horror etched on their faces. Like some of them are literally like against the inside of the glass, like they were trying to get out of these cryotubes. And then they were frozen in the act of doing so.
So they are frozen?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we think they're alive? Can we tell? Are they breathing?
But presumably there would be like a thing on the outside of the pod.
You check it, you can see that although effectively the ship's on like low power, there does appear to be power to the cryotubes, and you are picking up it is showing like the very faint life signs you would associate with someone in cryogenic suspension.
Okay.
So if they got frozen like this, Balan, that means there's a problem earlier in the chain of events.
Yes. And just look at the map. This drive is in the middle of this room, for want of a better expression.
Indeed, it's this sort of large sort of spinning sphere of dark metal that seems to be like revolving rapidly. Occasionally you see flickers of what almost look like chained lightning moving across its surface, and there's like a dull like in the air.
Okay. So can I approach it and see is there like a computer module to access it that might tell us what it's doing?
Okay, that is absolutely fine. You approach it and you can see there are what appear to be like three sort of like intercom / computer terminals. There is one there, and one there.
Okay.
You can see the only way to like directly get to the drive appears to be this platform here, whereas there's like two sort of slightly raised observational platforms.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. And if I approach this one here, what does the computer screen say, or is any information available?
Okay, you bring it up and you can see that like the other computer systems, it appears to be in like a hibernation mode.
Okay. So can I check the other three and see, or the other two, and see is there any other information?
They appear to be the same.
Okay. Would I ever have seen anything like this before that would have like observation decks in a spaceship for some sort of drive?
You've not seen a drive that looks like this before. It certainly doesn't look like any of the standard sort of FTL drive configurations that you've seen before. You would guess, based on the sort of setup in here, that The cryo tubes are probably in here because like they need a lotto power for the number that are in here, and obviously most of the power is coming from this drive, so you have them near, you haven't got to run like masses of cables and transits throughout the ship. But as to why there's like these observation platforms and the exact sort of makeup of the drive, it's not like anything you've seen before.
Okay. And do I think I can activate the computer from here? Or do I think I need to go to the control?
You think you probably have to like boot up the main system.
Okay. So I look at Tan and saying, I think we need to boot up the main system. Do you want to head to the bridge?
Yeah, there's going to be the records as well.
Yeah.
If we end up blowing this whole thing, suggest we scrape as much info as we can.
Yeah.
Sell that. If nothing else, we sell that, or just give it to some journos and
Yeah.
Okay, so you make your way back past the cargo bay into this sort of area here. It appears to be where they would monitor the drive from, etc. Like the engineering bays, effectively. There's like a couple of there's like 3 or 4 coolant tanks here. There's like a couple of like reactors here, which you presume would be like the power for like the normal engines rather than like the big drive. There's an engineering station located here, another computer terminal which you have a quick look at, and it's in like a hibernative state. You can also see there are what appear to be 2 escape pods here, and there is also a 3rd one here, which will be the first one you get to. As you look at these escape pods, you can see signs that someone has attempted to launch them, but for whatever reason they have not been launched. The escape pods are still there.
Are they single person pods or like lifeboats?
They're sort of like lifeboat things. You think you could fit maybe like 6 people inside them.
Okay.
And you're just about to continue past the one that you get to first, which is this one here, when you hear like a boom, 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 boom from inside.
Okay.
do you want to check it?
I'll get my rifle ready to fire should it get funky.
Okay, you head over again. There's like a door. Obviously, it's got like a remote, a manual like handle on it that you can turn to open it.
Yep. So if you want to step back, I can open it.
Okay.
So you got the gun, so
Yeah, I'll step back with the gun, so.
I'll open the pod.
Okay, as you open the pod, a figure hurls itself out of the door onto you, and it appears to be like a sort of malnourished, almost like half-mad Kelty, again wearing like a grey jumpsuit, and it sort of like leaps on you and starts like pounding at you with its fists, but this person's so like weak and malnourished, like it's not really causing you any damage, you're just like... And so this person's like screaming incoherently while they're like trying to...
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I will try and knock him out on the back of the head with the butt of my rifle.
Yeah. Don't have to make a roll for it. You knock them out. They slide to the floor. Again, you can see like signs of like cuts and minor wounds. A couple of like scorch marks, like they've been maybe like dinged with like laser guns.
Okay.
anything inside the pod?
Yep, you head inside the pod, and there are 5 dead Kelty in there.
Scorch marks?
They all appear to have been shot at close range with a laser pistol, and as you continue searching, you find that one of the dead Kelty is actually holding a laser pistol in its hand.
Okay.
So, Balan, I think they were trying to get away, but whatever this is that's causing you to now, out of the blue, just recall the crash, got to them before that. But if it's making these people shoot each other in closed spaces, I think we're on a clock, Balan, and I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to break out the Star Sword and dot dot dot.
I think whatever's happened there is happening here.
And as you're sort of talking, you become aware of this like low level sort of. First of all, it just sounds like a sort of. It's indistinguishable from the humming of the drive, and slowly it resolves itself into this strange babble of voices in the background. But it's just sort of outside the range of your hearing, so you can't quite hear what's being said. Some of them sound panicked. Some of them sound like higher pitched voices. Some are low. Like there's lots of people just outside your range of hearing, or like shouting.
Okay, I think that's our cue to speed walk to the control.
Okay.
Suggest we put him back in there.
Okay. So I'll throw him back in and lock the door.
Yeah, just so they're not going to wander around while we're here. If we want, we can pick them up on the way out. But
Okay, that's not a problem. You load the unconscious Cathy back in and lock them in the escape pod.
take the pistol out first.
Yeah, that's fine. And you start making your way down the central sort of corridor of the ship. When you reach the center of it, you can see there's like a large sort of mechanism around the sort of whole of the corridor. And having like a look at it for a few minutes, it seems to be like it's literally built so that if something goes wrong with the drive, the front part of the ship can be like detached, almost like its own sort of life raft. Effectively, when this like separation lock is triggered, the front part of the ship comes loose from the corridor and can like move away under its own power. At this point, Tam, can you please roll me a d6?
6.
Okay, so another one of these ripples heads out from the back of the ship, and at this point, I'm going to ask Tan, what's a traumatic event from your life? Oh, it was that time I had the high ground.
Yeah, when I didn't have the high ground, and I decided to do the jump anyway. No, the planet where Ken Benobi is a an ocean planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the civilization built onto the ocean floor.
Yep.
So I'm thinking there's probably some kind of underwater grotto with its own ecosystem and also air.
Yep.
That was some kind of a training area that we used. It's not like a public thing at all. It's your like secluded glade, except underwater.
Yep.
And I think that was probably. I'm riffing off of some of the
Riff away,
swamp stuff here. So maybe there was a place where young Tan, perhaps a couple of decades ago, was first taking steps as an entire novice, just having been picked out from the crowd by Ken Benobi, was learning about the facets of the way, and perhaps this was the first time that he walked the dark path on the way, in order to be aware of it and understand it, how the path of the void works and how it affects things. And that's probably the trauma then would have been rather more introspective, where he's basically fighting or being harrowed by basically the darkest potential that he has within him. So sort of having, I guess what I'm trying to say is, way induced sort of psychotic break in this underwater grotto, where he's sort of being overwhelmed by the new understanding of the void and facing the void alone.
Okay, so what happens is, as with Balan, as the wave passes over you, there is this bright flash, and you find yourself back in this grotto where you trained with Ken Bonobi. You are sat cross-legged in this sort of underwater cave lit by luminescent threads running through the stone walls around you, and you can hear sort of Ken Bonobi's voice sort of saying, release the anger and the pain inside yourself. It is okay if you fall. I'm here, I will catch you. And as actually happened, you sort of meditate on everything that's made you angry, everything that's caused you pain, your sort of darker emotions, and you're assailed by these visions within a vision of these sort of darker side of your nature. However, in the real world, when this actually happens 10, 20 years ago, you basically sort of collapsed on the floor of the grotto, like covered in sweat, panting, sort of like worn out from the exertion of sort of unleashing these forces, but it was all controlled. Bonobi sort of like took you away, and he was basically like, this is, as a Star Knight, this is the struggle we face every day. If we were to allow ourselves to be consumed by this dark side of our nature, think of the damage we could do. And then he took you away, and he started telling you about meditations you could use to control this darker aspect of your nature, and saying that like it wasn't right to completely deny it, because that would lead to it building up, and then there would be an explosion like the one you sort of just had almost. And then you went on with the rest of your training. However, in this vision, you're assailed by these sort of dark visions of yourself, and you lash out at them. And then when these visions fade, you look down at your hand, and you're holding a star sword with the blade fully extended. Your eyes travel along it, and you see sort of Ken Bonobi stood there like with like the star blade through his chest. He opens his mouth to like say something. A thin trickle of blood runs out of his mouth. You smell the hiss, where you hear the hiss, and you smell sort of burning flesh as the blade is through his chest. He sort of like reaches out a trembling hand towards you with the last of his strength, and he says, again in a voice that doesn't sound like Ken Bonobi, he says, "Why, you were supposed to be my pupil." And he sort of reaches out and like, touches your face with like no strength whatsoever, because he's dying. And he's like, "Why did you do?" And he slides off the end of your star blade and falls to the ground, dead. And as he sort of hits the ground with a loud stony thump in this grotto, again there is a flash, and you find yourself stood in this central corridor, like Balan still like looking at the separation mechanism, and you're sort of stood there with like your arm extended, as it was in the vision, but you're not holding a star sword. Obviously, it's just like you with your arm extended, as it would be if you were holding a sword.
And I guess I'm as I come to, I'll just shout out like, "No, I didn't do it."
Okay, so Balan, you're sort of like, "Oh yeah, I'm just checking out this separation lock." There's this like ripple, does nothing, and then from behind you, you just hear like Tan be like, "No, I didn't do it."
Didn't do what? What's going on?
I'll
Are you
spin
seeing
around
things too?
and like slowly turn my head left to right. think it's getting to me, Balan.
Oh no. I think we need to hurry.
Okay, you continue making your way through the central chamber. The first area you reach, again still hearing this like babble of sort of like indistinct voices in the background. The first area you reach appears to be like a sort of storage unit or a workshop. There's like a few vac suits hanging on the walls. There's what appears to be I suppose an armory. You think it must have once been, but like you can see like the racks where there would have been like laser rifles and guns, etc. But they're all gone. There's also, as you approach, there's another escape pod. The armory's there. There's another escape pod there, although this one doesn't appear to have been used.
Okay. So I guess we keep going till we find a computer system.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
double time.
So you head into this area. There is it's like a computer terminal on standby there, and there are a couple of chambers to your left and right as you head in. And as you sort of like look through like the view slits in the walls, you can see there must have been like hydroponics bays. There's like sort of vegetable matter and stuff like that growing in there. And as you look sort of further on into this main room, you see there appears to be like a ladder sort of heading down through a hatch there.
So, Balan, in the very first scans, down there, sophisticated electronic systems.
Okay.
Maybe the core is there, but I don't know if the controls are.
Okay, well, let's go down and see if we can find it.
Okay.
Okay, no problems. So you head down the ladder, which takes you to here. Again, you see you're in what appears to be basically, there's like a reactor core here, which you assume would be the drive for this part of the ship if it broke away. There's a couple of corridors so to the left and right as you head down, and peering through the doors in there, you can see this appears to be like where the mechanisms for like the thrusters would be that would operate this part of the ship if it like separated itself.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's the other compartment. Let's go back up.
Okay.
Yeah, no problems. You head back up and you continue exploring through here. Obviously you get to this bit here. You can see there's a corridor sort of heading up in this direction. You peer through a door here and it appears to go into what looks to be like a med lab, judging by the sort of like the medical bay beds that are in there. And there's a door at the far end which, as you look through, you see it appears to go into a bridge area here. And again, there is another access ladder here. However, as you peer into the bridge, it looks like the scene of an absolute massacre. There is evidence of laser weaponry fire here, scorch marks on the walls, etc. There are broken, mutilated corpses of Kelty just sort of like littering the floor. There is smashed machinery. You see like several like improvised weapons ranging from like just like bits of torn off metal that are like obviously been like used as like stabbing implements covered in blood. There's like pipes which a lot of them used to like bash people's heads in with, as well as various sort of like laser weaponry like lying on some of the bodies, which you presume may have come from the armory.
Okay.
Right. Down we go. That's the systems. You have your equipment. Maybe we can direct access.
Okay, so you head down the access ladder and you can see at the in the chamber that you're sort of facing towards as you come down, there is what appears to be a large, sophisticated computer system in the room beyond, and on the door it says Apollo.
Okay. Is there a window on the door we can look through to see?
Yep, there's a little window on the door. When you look in, it looks like one of those old server rooms, you know, with like the massive, tall sort of like computers with like winking lights on them, as much beloved of 70s and 80s sci-fi.
Is there a large red eye-shaped thing?
No, there isn't, unfortunately.
I guess I'll open the door and step in and see.
Yep, you open the door like using the manual crank, you step in. As you do, all of the lights on these like computer banks sort of come on and start sort of like flashing.
Okay.
And then you hear a very calm voice in a language you don't understand say something. It appears to be coming from the computer.
So I'll get my Diplo droid on speed dial and go, Mr. D, I am in need of translation services. And transmit the sound that the computer made.
Okay, so you transmit that and you hear the Diplo droid say something back in the same language. You assume it sounds similar. And after a few moments, you again hear this very calm voice say, switching to Galactic Basic. And then you hear the Diplo droid on your like comms be like, there you go, sucker! I told it to talk in a language you can understand. However,
Thank
like
you, Mr. D.
you notice like the Diplo droid's like voice sounds like a bit odd, like occasionally like the volume drops, or it like does that like I sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. D. Apollo.
Yes, how may I help you?
Can you tell me what the drive in the back of the ship is doing?
The drive is functioning at 100% efficiency. However, there has been a containment breach.
And what is the purpose of the drive?
I'm afraid that information is classified.
And how could the containment breach be repaired?
The containment field surrounding the drive would need to be reinforced.
Okay. And how would it be reinforced?
It starts like spieling off like a load of technical data, which you think, I mean, you're not an expert sort of like mechanic, but you think it's basically saying there was like, normally there's like an energy field around the drive that like contains something. You're not sure what. And there was some sort of power fluctuation as they entered the nebula, maybe caused by the nebula, which caused the sort of field to lose power.
Okay. Okay. Can you reactivate the power to the containment field?
He says, I would require the captain's access code to do so.
Okay. Can you locate the captain?
At last communication, Captain Bran was on the bridge.
Okay.
I'm afraid I've been running on suspended mode for some time.
Okay. How much time have you been on suspended mode?
According to my calculations, approximately 2 months.
Okay. And when did the containment breach occur?
The containment breach occurred 30 standard minutes after we entered the nebula.
Is that before or after you went on low power mode?
Before.
Okay. Did you see what happened to the crew?
The crew's behaviour began to become very erratic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As per standard protocol, when a contagion breaks out aboard the vessel, I powered down and attempted to transmit a remote call for help. However, I was unable to reach through the interference on the nebula.
Okay. And who does your distress call go to?
The distress call would have been on a broadband to any vessels nearby.
Okay. And is the contagion still airborne?
Unknown. I have been unable to determine the precise cause of the contagion. However, given the behaviour of the crew, the only logical possible reason was that some form of unknown contagion had stricken them.
Okay. And do you think the contagion is related to the drive?
Unknown.
Okay. Okay. Let me try and get the captain's access code, and we can see if we can reinforce the containment field.
Confirmed.
Okay. I guess we're going back up to the bridge.
Okay, so you head back up to the bridge, and as I described it previously, it's the site of an absolute massacre. Like, most of the crew on the bridge appear to have like killed each other. You eventually locate the sort of like the captain's chair. There is a Keltie sort of sat slumped in it. You can see he's basically like he's got like this large sort of like scorch burn. He's holding a laser pistol, like he's just like put it to his own head, and you can see like limply sort of held in his other hand is what might be, it's not standard configuration, but it might be a data pad of some sort.
Okay.
Albeit one specifically made for people with like webbed fingers.
Okay, so I'll pick it up and try and activate it and see if we can work out what it is.
Okay, so you pick it up. It's not like locked or secured. You expect he just like did his last thing and then, so he didn't care about locking it. You pick it up. It appears that the last thing he did on it was he like recorded effectively like a log entry on it.
Okay, and can we play the log entry?
You most certainly can. You play the log entry, and on like the little screen comes up a picture of the captain. You can hear like the sound of like shouting and sort of like laser fire in the background. He looks like he's got cuts and bruises all over him. He's out of breath. You can see he's holding up like the laser pistol, and he's like, I don't know what's happened. Just after we came into the nebula, there was something's gone wrong with the drive. I don't understand. It's running at full power, but we're not going anywhere. We tried to use the escape pods, but we couldn't get them to release due to the power loss. Whatever's going on, it makes you see things. It makes you do things. He says, if anyone reads this, if anyone hears this last message, to tell my family I'm sorry. The crew, they've gone mad. They'll soon be breaking in here. I can't keep them out much longer. At which point you see him like point the laser pistol like over and like fires it. You can't see what he's firing it at. And he's like, they'll soon get in. There's only one way out, he says. And he sort of like puts the gun to his head, and then he said, I've seen the dragon. And then as he squeezes the trigger, obviously the sort of like static fills the screen as the energy discharge from the weapon disrupts the recording. And then you get like the sort of like recording terminated message wink up.
Okay. Does the data pad have the captain's access details in it?
It does.
Okay. And can I speak to Apollo from here? Is there an interface to the computer from here?
There are lots of computer terminals about.
Okay. Maybe I'll just go back down. So
I mean, most of them are sort of covered in blood and horribleness, but
oh yeah, I'll just swing back down to
you slide down the ladder back into the computer room.
Okay. And I'll go, Apollo, I have your access code.
You provide it with the access code, At which point it says Captain's access code confirmed, awaiting further instructions.
Can you reinforce the containment field around the drive?
The drive is currently running at 150% of normal power output. I would require the drive to be powered down before the containment field can be activated.
Can you power down the drive?
Attempting to power down drive. Then a few minutes pass and it says, my apologies, I'm currently unable to power down the drive.
What is preventing you from powering down the drive?
Unknown.
Can the drive be powered down manually?
There is a manual power down option available in the drive section in case of emergencies.
Okay. Can you sense any more contagion in the atmosphere of the ship?
No, however, I should inform you that I have as yet been unable to identify the contagion, so I cannot confirm or deny its presence.
Okay.
These waves are coming from the drive, aren't they?
That's correct, yes.
And after each wave, you get an hallucination. I theorise then to Apollo that the contagion is the drive.
As you say that, like obviously it's relayed through the comms. The voice of Apollo says that would seem consistent with current events.
Okay.
Please instruct on how to safely shut down the drive.
Automatic shutdown of drive has failed for unknown reasons. I would suggest using the manual shutdown option present in the drive chamber. However, if your theory is correct that the contagion is focused on the drive, it would stand to reason that that would be the epicenter and most dangerous place to encounter the contagion.
So, guys, you can either shut down the drive or we can shoot the shit out of the ship.
Well, let's try and shut down the drive first and save 500 lives at 100 credits apiece.
It's not 500 anymore, though, is it?
Well, there's 500 passengers, right? Apollo, now that I have the access code, can you tell me what the purpose of the drive is?
The drive, classified Experimental Horizon Drive, is a black hole powered drive designed to permit the movement of large vessels over vast distances of space more quickly and more efficiently than the standard FTL drives currently in use.
Okay.
Black hole.
That is correct. The drive is powered by a small contained localized black hole.
Right.
And can you shut down black hole?
Not in my experience.
Shutting down the drive does not disable the black hole, it merely renders its effects inoperative. Hence the need for the containment field. It contains the properties of the black hole. The drive appears to be functional, since if it had failed completely, the ship would have been consumed by the black hole.
Okay. And do you know why the ship is not moving, even though the drive is functioning?
Unknown. The drive is producing 150% of its expected output. However, the ship is not moving.
Okay. And who created the drive?
The drive was created by the County Science Bureau.
Okay.
Right, guys, I'm going to say, right, maybe we should shut down the drive and then ask all these questions later.
Okay.
At which point, Tyler, can you please roll me a d6?
Two.
Okay, so another one of these waves goes off, and as it sort of passes over you, Tyler, you feel like a brief sort of feeling of sort of like, you know, like if you go over like a roller coaster and your stomach lurches when you go down.
Yeah.
You feel sort of like that, like momentarily you're being like pulled somewhere, but then it like passes really quickly, and like you don't have any vision or anything. Speaking of which, where are your mercenaries at the present time?
All on my ship.
In which case, roll me another d6.
Six.
Okay, so you hear a bit of a commotion on the O'Neill, and when you go back, you see that like 9 of your 10 mercenaries are restraining one of their number. And
Okay,
like
yeah.
you head in, like the other mercenaries are like, "Oh, we don't know what happened. He just started like kicking off." And you see like basically like as soon as he was like and started going for his weapons, the other 9 were like, "I don't think so, son," and just like pile drived him into the ground. And they're now like restraining him. He struggles for a few minutes, and then he's like, you hear he's screaming, like he seems to be like screaming for his like mother, and he's like shouting something about a fire, and they're like restraining him for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then it seems to pass, and this like mercenary who's like on the floor, he suddenly like comes back to his own, and he's like, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on?" And they're asking him what happened, and he says, "Oh, it was weird. He was like, when he was younger, he was caught in a fire.
No,
And
I did shout you.
his mum was trapped in a fire, and he like couldn't get to her to help her, and he thought he was back there again."
Right.
Fucking I can't carry it.
Give me a sec, matey.
Yeah, sorry, man. Okay, so whilst all that's going on, Tyler's sorting that out. We jump back to you guys on the ship. What are you doing?
I guess we're heading for this manual shutdown mechanic.
Okay, no problem. So you start making your way back through the ship towards the drive section. You get to here when, as you're heading through, you suddenly hear a voice shout something in a language you don't understand. It sounds a bit like how Apollo first talked to you.
Okay.
You assume it's the Kelties' native tongue, and like the voice
Okay.
seems to be coming from sort of like somewhere down here, from like round the corner, and you're sort of like here.
Okay. So can we get the Diplo droid on again and ask him to translate it for us?
Yep, you get the Diplo droid on. The Diplo droid shouts out something again in this language, and you hear this sort of like quite sort of like stern voice say, "Yes, of course we speak Galactic Basic. Who are you? What are you doing here?"
We have come to rescue the ship.
At which point you hear like a shh of something sliding along the floor, and you see what appears to be like a small knife, like a small like ornamental, not almost like more like an ornamental letter opener than like a dagger, like slides down the corridor towards you, and the voice is like, "Prove that you're real."
So I'll pick up the knife and I guess cut my finger and show that there's blood.
Okay. As you do that, you see what appears to be a female Keltie, sort of like soft blue, like iridescent scaled skin, like gill slits on her neck, sort of like large eyes, again wearing sort of like a grey jumpsuit, steps out. She's got like 4 other Keltie behind her. She's like holding a laser rifle, but she's still holding it, but she's like got it lowered. She's not pointing it at you. She comes like walking out, walks down the corridor, followed by like 4 fellow crew members towards you, and she sort of like looks over you, like peers at your hand where you've cut your finger, sort of lowers her gun a little bit more, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I had to be sure though. We've all seen such strange things since we got here." And then she makes like a strange gesture with her webbed hand, and then says, "Security Chief Saz Dunk."
Balan, Giza, my brother Tan.
She looks at you both. You see, like, she raises an eyebrow when she sees Tan, but she doesn't say anything. She's like, how did you get on board?
We came through the cargo bay.
Then you've got a ship out there.
Yes.
Look, we've got to get out of here as soon as we possibly can. The rest of the crew's gone insane. So some of them are still lurking around in the decks, and she gestures back at some of her fellows, and you can now see as they've come a bit closer that they've got injuries on them.
Yeah.
She's like, there were 8 of us when we started, but 4 of them have been like taken over by whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
I had to put one of them down myself.
We're trying to contain the drive to stop it happening again, or to stop the contagion. But once we're finished, we can take you off the ship if you would prefer.
She nods and says, I knew nothing had ever come of the Science Bureau messing around with Draken tech. I told them it was a mistake, but they wouldn't listen. And now look what's happened.
And what can you tell me about the dragon tech?
She looks at you and then says, No, not dragon, Draken.
Oh. Okay. And what's Dragon tech?
She says, look, she sort of looks a bit impatient, but then she's like, oh, okay, yeah. She's like, look, in our society that we have, my people, we have ancient legends that long ago, I'm sure you're aware that the Celti are renowned as warriors throughout much of known space. But that's just one side of our society. But we have legends amongst our people that many, many, many years ago, like when our race was young, a race known as the Draken came to our world, and they recruited us as soldiers in their war. And then we don't have any legends about what happened in the war. We just know that they disappeared. But when they disappeared, they left some of their ships, some of their tech on our world. And at the time, our people saw them as holy relics. We didn't understand them. It was only when we later advanced ourselves, we understood that they were pieces of technology. And over the last few hundred years, our people have been trying to unravel the enigma of what this tech was. One of the devices the Science Bureau were able to create from their understanding of the tech was the Horizon drive on board this ship. It's supposed to allow you to use black holes as a sort of gateway, I suppose. You can pass through one and instantaneously come out of another one. With it, you would be able to, as long as a sector had black holes in it, you'll be able to travel almost instantaneously across the sector. Now, you may or may not know this, I don't know how much you know about my people, but we have a very high birth rate on our world. Given that we are warriors, it is probably the only reason and she sort of laughs a bit to herself, it's probably the only reason we're still around. But the problem with that is there's so many of us that we quickly deplete the resources of any world we're settled on. So it's become necessary for us to range further and further afield to find worlds to colonize. And the standard FTL drives and reactor drives that we had weren't allowing us to get to all the worlds quickly enough. Hence the Science Bureau's desperate attempt to find a drive that could enable us to move over larger distances more quickly. It was hoped that the Kubruk would be the first of many ships with these drives in, and that we could use them to spread out and colonize new worlds.
Okay. Well, come then, let us shut down the drive and see if we can't contain the contagion.
She nods, and you all start heading towards the drive chamber. You head back in there. It's much as I described it previously, the cryo tubes are hanging on the sort of domed inside of the walls, this spinning orb of dark metal with occasional flickers of lightning around it in the centre of the chambers, set on this sort of central platform. There's the various sort of computer terminals that are set up around it. as you walk in, the security chief says, Dunk, she sort of points to this terminal here, and she says, that's where the shielding control is. The other one, and she points over there, is the manifest control system. And this, and she points at the station in front of you, this is the basic monitoring station that we use to monitor the power output of the drive.
Okay.
And as you sort of look at it, she basically taps on it a little bit, and she shows you like the power level, which is like above the maximum, which doesn't surprise you because Apollo told you it was 150%.
Okay, and where is the mechanism to shut it down?
So it's part of the manifest control system.
Okay. So I will head down to here and try and start shutting it down.
She sort of follows after you, and she's like, oh, you need the at least 2 senior officers' access codes to.
Are you a senior officer?
Says, well, yes, I'm the security chief.
Okay. Well, I have the captain's access code, so.
You've seen the captain. Where is he? We haven't been able to get to the bridge.
He is joined or recently departed. But I have his access code.
She looks downwards for a second, then she seems to, like, with an effort of will, like, chokes back her feelings. Situation to deal with. You get the feeling she's used to, like, right, I've got to put whatever I'm feeling aside and, like, just do the job. She's like, right, okay, and she heads over to the manifest control, like, types in her access code, and then obviously turns it over to you to type in the captain's access code.
And I'll type in the captain's access code, yeah.
Okay. Now, Tan, as Balan starts typing in the access code, everyone is paying attention to the computers. You notice that the dark metallic sphere of the orb stops spinning as they're typing. If you're talking to us, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah. Does anything change?
At first, nothing appears to change. Then you notice that, like, the dark metal is getting, like, darker until, like, the orb is almost entirely black, looking like a hole in
as we're
space.
not annihilated, Tan is presuming that's the containment thing or the scaling back of the power.
Okay. Then you note, as everyone else is typing, like Balan, you just started typing in the access code. You notice that the surface of this now black orb appears to, like, ripple, almost like it was a sphere of liquid and something had disturbed the surface.
So how are we doing there?
I'm going as fast as I can. Relax.
Yep. You type in the access code, the system comes up, and basically Security Chief Dunk is, like, sort of talking you through it. So obviously you have to, like, go through, like, the menus. Like, are you sure you want to reinforce this and that? So you're going through all of that. She's, like, talking you through it because she seems to know the procedure. Then as this is going on, you hear what sounds like almost similar to the sound of, like, wet fabric tearing coming from this now perfectly dark sphere in the centre of the drive chamber. And as you watch what appears to be a number of, I suppose, tendrils of pure darkness sort of burst out of the orb at the centre, and you see these tendrils sort of, like, rushing and undulating towards where you're all stood on the various control decks. What do you want to do?
Type faster.
Okay, roll me a d6.
4.
Okay, so as one of these tendrils is literally just sort of, like, reaching where you are, and Dunk's like, right, now just hit that and we're good. And just as this tendril's, like, reaching towards you, and you feel like pressure as it starts to, like, wrap around you, you hit the button on it, and there is a brief sort of shimmering as an energy field activates around the drive. And the instant the energy field activates, this, like, these shadowy tendrils just, like, vanish.
Okay.
And then as you look back, you can see the sphere is now once again sort of like this dark metal sphere spinning around.
Okay. That was pretty strange. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
Dunk says, no, but look, I'm not a science boffin, but the way I understand it is the drive allows you to access another place, another dimension where the laws of physics aren't the same as they are in our dimension. And by travelling through this dimension, that's what allows the ship to travel so fast, because obviously we're limited by physics to a certain extent in our dimension. However, that's not the case in this other place where it takes you.
Okay.
I don't really know a lot more about it. Like I say, I'm not a science boffin.
Okay. Can I use this computer to talk to Apollo?
Dunk says, if Apollo's active, you can just address it from anywhere on the ship. It's the ship's AI.
Apollo, can you confirm that the drive is operating within normal parameters?
Confirmed. Containment field is now restored.
Okay. Any update on the contagion? Any sense that it has been contained as well?
Unknown, since I have not established the cause of the contagion nor its precise makeup. I am unable to comment on that.
Okay. Can you give me a rundown of any remaining crew members who are alive?
Yes, there are 5 remaining crew members left alive. They are in your current location.
And there's 5 with us, is there?
Yeah, there's says Duncan, like 4 people with her.
Okay. Okay. Is it possible to maneuver the ship now?
Confirmed.
Okay. Can you move the ship out of the nebula?
Please state destination.
You're muted, Dave, if you're talking.
Probably not wise to tell it where to go. If that containment fails again, you're going to get more of these episodes.
Yeah, but if we get outside the nebula, there shouldn't be any more containment breaches. I'd like to ask Apollo to bring us to just outside the nebula, just at the next sector.
Confirmed. Due to the danger of activating the drive within inside the nebula, I would suggest we proceed on thrusters only.
Confirmed. Yes, please.
At which point you feel like a slight vibration run through the Tubruk, and it starts moving on its thrusters. Obviously, Tylo, from your position aboard the O'Neill, you can see the ship sort of slowly using its manoeuvring thrusters to just basically move in the same. It sort of turns itself around, so it's now facing out of the nebula, which takes some time because it's like a big ship and it's only using its little thrusters, and then slowly it's and starts manoeuvring its way towards the edge of the nebula.
Are there any more of these waves?
There have been no further ripples.
That's good.
Okay. And Apollo, can you reinforce the containment field as we pass out of the nebula, so in case there's another spike?
Confirmed.
Okay.
And the ship continues moving out of the nebula. Just presumably the O'Neill's following along.
Yeah, well, just slowly.
Okay. As you're getting towards the edge of the nebula, you hear the voice of Apollo say, "I'm picking up 3 cloaked vessels on the outskirts of the nebula."
Full stop.
Confirmed.
Nature of the vessels?
Unknown.
How's it determined there's cloaked things out there?
How can you detect cloaked ships?
The technology that my scanners are based on is more advanced than the cloaking drives being used.
Okay.
Yeah, as we've established, they've got a very well-established science department. We should, I say, lowering my voice a bit, to Balan, we should probably pick up some specs here if we can.
Or like a new ship. Okay. Apollo, can you tell if the ships are moving, or is there any way to understand how long they have been here and cloaked?
There is no way to know how long they have been here and cloaked, although I have not picked them up previously. That may be due to the interference from the nebula. However, the technology used in the ships is consistent with the technology used in the event drive.
Okay.
Configuration of
They're
vessels
waiting
unknown.
to take back their ship.
Do we believe... Could these be Kelty ships, or we believe that they're Draken ships, Apollo?
Configuration does not match any known Kelty configuration that I have on file.
What are your defense measures?
We have several laser cannons.
Okay.
I can cloak. Go and wait to see what feed cloaks in front of you. And then open fire if they do.
Okay.
At least I'm designed for war.
Okay. And you have a crew and whatever else to shoot the guns. Okay. So if you cloak, kind of move out.
Yeah.
I guess Apollo, is the cloaking technology and of the 3 ships better than the cloaking technology of our ship? Can you tell?
Almost certainly.
Okay. So they may be able to. Can you sense the strength of their scanners through the cloak?
No.
No. Okay.
About firepower, can you pick that up?
They are of unknown configuration. No standard weaponry detected.
Okay. I'll turn to Tan and say, should we hail them? See what they want? Or do we activate the drive?
I don't think we want to activate the drive. So probably hail them.
So if I'm correct, the O'Neill's going out under cloak to get a bit of a look, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so as you head out, obviously you head out to the nebula, you activate your cloak as soon as you come out. As you do, you see what appeared to be 3 very large ships, almost entirely black against the dark of space. You could only really see them because of the background of the nebula, which is these sort of pink and purple hues. And they have an almost sort of armoured spider look to them, with sort of multiple legs coming off them.
Okay.
But they appear to be made of this sort of black metal that almost seems to absorb light.
Apollo, can you find any life signs on any of the 3 ships?
Negative, my sensors cannot penetrate the vessels.
Okay. Is it a cloaking problem or is it a nebula problem?
I believe it is an aspect of the ships themselves.
Okay.
And as you're saying this, the three ships enter the nebula. As they do, they deactivate their cloaks. You all see these sort of like spider-like, sort of dark black shapes of these vessels, and they appear to be sort of like flying over you.
Okay.
They don't appear to be like stopping or like attacking you or anything.
Okay. Apollo, can you activate thrusters
Confirmed.
and move us forward?
It starts
And hail the ship.
It starts moving you slightly forward, hailing the vessels. Message received, and as it says that, there is this, it says, would you like me to relay communications?
Yes, please.
Confirmed. And then there is what sounds like an extremely high-pitched screeching sound that just appears to like continue in like one continuous note, never sort of rising or losing.
Okay.
It's quite sort of ear-piercing.
Apollo, can you translate for us?
Unfortunately not. It confirms to no language in my database.
Okay. And as we're moving forward, are they still moving away from us?
Yeah, basically as you're sort of going like this, they're heading over the top.
Okay.
Then Apollo says, I'm detecting an energy build-up in the central vessel.
Can you activate shields? And how far are we from the edge of the nebula?
Not very far at all, a few minutes.
Okay.
Activating shields. And then as Apollo says that, there is like a bright sort of white flash from the event drive chamber that seems to like fill the whole chamber, and it's blinding for a few seconds.
Okay. And are we still in the event drive
Yeah.
chamber?
The flash passes, and you're all still sort of stood there. You seem to be okay. Then the security chief sort of like nudges you and like points upwards, and as she does, you look up and you can see that all the cryo tubes are now empty.
Oh no. Is the drive intact?
The drive appears to be unaffected.
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was going to say we probably should go.
Yes.
As soon as it is feasible. Is the containment holding? No.
It seems to be. There's been no further ripples or anything like that. The drive looks like it's spinning. There's no sort of like weird distortions on it like there was previously. The three vessels pass over you, and then as they sort of get a little distance away from you, so they're now behind you, you're probably the only one who can see this, Tylo. You see as they sort of head away further into the nebula what looks to be a large like dark tear in the fabric of space opens in front of these three vessels, and they go into this tear, which then like closes up behind them.
Okay.
Okay, we'll put that down to new drive technology as well.
I'm guessing they got their soldiers.
And you've got a really big ship
Hmm.
with a terrifying drive.
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, we do.
I think I'll let you keep that one.
And I think, as Tylo says, yeah, I think I'll let you keep that one. And both the Tobruk and the O'Neill continue out of the nebula back into the relative safety of normal space. That is where we're going to draw an end to the session for this evening, guys. Thank you very much for playing. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's very good. Thanks, John.
No worries. Right, obviously I'm going to wrap up the stream here, and then we'll sort out XP and all that sort of malarkey. So thanks for anyone who's watching this either now or in the future. Again, thanks to my wonderful players, and hopefully we'll catch you next time. Take it easy.